Welcome back to the Blazor Server in-depth course. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at deploying to a hosted site, meaning we've purchased some hosting somewhere else on the web, and now we want to deploy our Blazor app to that site. Okay, so let's first start by creating a Blazor app. New project, Blazor app. Blazor app, we'll call this hosted demo. All the settings are the same, so ASP.NET Core 3.1, Blazor Server app, and HTTPS. Again, no authentication. This will be basically the same as last time. We'll go to the pages here and go to index, and we'll say, hello from a hosted app. All right, and let's run this, make sure it runs. Always make sure it runs locally first, because if for whatever reason it doesn't run locally, if you forgot to test that, then when you deploy it and it doesn't work, you think it's the deployment's problem. And you're debugging doing a lot of work in debugging that isn't really necessary. Okay, so hello from a hosted app, that works. All right, so now what we can do is we can work on connecting to a web host. Okay, so first I'm going to publish this. And it seems a little odd that I don't have a web host yet, but I'm publishing. I'm going to publish to a file, but it will be for IIS-FTP or web deploy. And the reason why is because my web host is an IIS, but I want to deploy it locally. So let's do this. Let's do a file system. I could do FTP because I do know what my web host is. I'm going to do a file system and then FTP it. So target location, let's go back to my D drive, back to demos, and we'll create a new folder here called hosted Blazor, and hit open, hit next, release, .NET Core 3.1. We're going to do self-contained, because the web host might not have what we need. All right, so we're gonna try this and see how it works. And we could produce a single file. We're not gonna do that, but that's kind of a neat option. Ready to run makes it a little bit faster to start the first time. We're not gonna do that. Trim unused assemblies. What that does is it gets rid of anything in the .NET Core that we don't actually need. But that can be a little bit quirky at times. I'm not gonna check that box right now. I'm gonna deal with the extra file size. And delete all existing files prior to publish? Yes, because we're publishing it to a folder. So that's great. And there is no database connection stuff. Hit save. And now I'm going to hit publish. And this will take a little longer than before because of the fact that it is packaging up .NET Core with our application. But as you can see, it's already done. And if we open up File Explorer here and go to Hosted Blazor, there's a lot more stuff in here. In fact, if I Control A and do a properties on this, you'll see it's 85 megabytes. That's significantly more, but it's taking all of .NET Core with it. Okay? So now what we can do is we can upload this to our web host. A video for how to create one of these sites and how to register my domain name. So I'm going to try and link to that in the future. It won't be right away, but I'll also put it on my YouTube channel probably as well. So I have registered howtolearncsharp.com, and I have associated it with this hosting platform. Now, I registered this separately at Namecheap, just so you know. I prefer not to associate my domain names with my host by purchasing them at the same place. I purchase them separately so I get to have more control. Okay? Now, I'll tell you what. I'm going to put the raw videos for me actually creating the domain name or buying that, and also me registering this host. I'll put those raw videos right in this lesson. So you've probably already seen it because you're in the future. But I'm thinking through that. I want to make sure that you know how to use this remote host. Now, you don't have to. Don't feel any obligation to do that. You can just watch and know for the future if you ever have to do this. And that will give you access to log in via FTP. So I'm going to use a tool called FileZilla. FileZilla is free, and I've already set up my profile. So you'll notice I have howtolearncsharp.com, and that's going to log me into the site. Notice that I want to go to the HTTP docs location, and there's the root of my website. Now over here on the left, I'm going to navigate to, let's refresh this, my hosted Blazor. I'm going to take everything in here. So Control A, I'm going to drag it over onto this side. And that's going to upload all of those files. Notice that right now I've got a queue of about 320 files, and 50 have been completed. And it's going to continue to do that over and over and over again. It's going to go through the queue and hopefully successfully transfer them all. I will probably have it pause at some point and ask me if I want to overwrite the web.config file. Okay, so there's the prompt if I want to overwrite that file or not. I'm going to skip it for now. Actually, no, I'm going to overwrite it. So my file, I probably want to, no, I'm going to skip it. Better skip it, and then if we need it, we will upload it. But that way we don't cause any problems on the server. Now, I would also download the file before I overwrote it in case I needed to put it back. The web.config is for IIS configuration, so I don't want to mess that. I don't have to. Let's go back to this page and refresh. We still have our index.html file there, so we go back to our www root and we search for index.html. Let's delete that because it's not something we need, and it's causing us to default to that. We get a forbidden page. And that's because we did need some settings in that web.config. If we go here and look at our web.config, let's open this with Notepad. Notice we have ASP.NET Core, and the path is blazor-app.exe. These are things that we need. So let's overwrite that file, and if we need to, we can always bring it back. But I've already downloaded it, so let's overwrite that. And now we have it overwritten. We refresh, and we get this error, the 500.32. Now don't freak out. it says fail to load DLL. The common mistake people make is to, when they get an error message, go, oh no, and just panic instead of actually reading what the error message says. The application was likely published for a different bitness than the w3wp.exe/iasexpress.exe is running as. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means that we probably published for the wrong type. So we probably said, 64-bit, and I'm betting we need 32-bit. Let's go back over here. If we go to settings, notice Win64. Let's change it to Win86. It's a 32-bit site. And now I believe we said overwrite our existing files. Let's make sure. Delete all existing files prior to publish. I'm going to show you, let me get the folder pulled up here. Here's the folder. So we're going to, well, it's going to not show it for a minute. Let's hit save. Now we'll hit publish, and now I'll bring the folder up. There we go. So now we're publishing it, the x86 version, and it should have overwritten everything here. So let's go back to our site here. We're going to refresh this. I'm going to Control A again, and I'm going to drag it over and overwrite. I'm going to overwrite for all of these. I'm going to say apply to current queue only, overwrite. All right. So that means it's not going to overwrite every time without asking me, just for this particular queue, which is a safer way of doing things, because what if the next time we didn't want it to overwrite, we wanted to prompt? All right. So now we're going to overwrite with the newer versions. I'll pause this video and we'll come back once it's done. Okay, it just finished. So let's drag this off and let's bring up our site again, and we'll hit refresh. And now at howtolearnc#.com, which is HTTPS, we can see hello from a hosted app. We can use our counter. We can fetch our data. It's all working. So we have now published our website. Now again, we could have skipped a step here. And when we went to publish, we create a new one. We can use the FTP here, put our credentials in, and then not have to go to that folder first and then go FTP it over. Okay, so that is a potential way of going. You can figure out how to fill out FTP credentials. It really is just the IP address goes here, the path, if you need one, goes here, username, password, and the destination URL is just going to make sure that you know that it's howtolearnc#.com. That's all it'll be. And then it will publish via FTP, and you'll skip that step of going to a folder first. Okay? So that was all there was to publishing to a web server. Now, I do want to point out, I pointed out in my previous video where I actually set up this site, but just note that down here under IIS settings, in the Plesk layout, we can go and it's not under IIS settings, sorry. It's under hosting settings. There we go. So in here, make sure that you have SSL turned on, okay, so that you have that HTTPS. I use a Let's Encrypt certificate for now, but I did buy a full certificate or a different certificate, not a full. This is a full one too, but a different certificate from Namecheap, which we can apply here as well. So it's up to you if you want to do that. That's one setting to look at. And the other is down here under ASP.NET settings. If we click this, you'll see that we have connection strings. So if you did decide that you want to have an external database, and let's say you published it to Azure databases, which you could do, and then what you can do is you can put in here that connection string, and it will overwrite what you have in appsettings.json. So it looks for, in this case, local SQL Server as the connection string name. You might have default connection, you might have SQL DB, whatever your connection string name is, you'd have your connection string right there. And that would allow you to connect to that database, okay? Now with Azure, you would have to then also make sure that you are allowing this IP address to connect to that Azure SQL database. But that's, oops, I clicked on the wrong spot. But that's how you would connect your database securely and safely to your website, even though you publish it in a different location. Now, this site also allows you to add your own databases here if you'd like. So you can add a new database here, and you can, this is a MySQL database or a SQL Server database, and you could publish right to the SQL Server database from your SSDT project, and now you have your database and your website on the same host. That's also possible, okay? So there's a lot you can do here, but that's how you publish your application to an external host. So if you do want to try this out, I would say start with a test site. So buy your real domain name, set up your real host, but then use a test site first. That way you're not concerned about all the configuration, all the extra stuff. Just get something like what we did up and running, and then you can worry about connecting a database and all the rest, and then you can put your real site on there, okay, and overwrite that test site. But that gives you a good getting up to speed way of going about things, okay? So that's how to set up the hosting service. Once you've kind of walked through this, maybe if you're going to try it out, but again, don't feel pressure to. This is just another option to do. But then once you're ready, let's move on to the next way of deploying your application.